I'll kick us off, and then I'll kick it over to you, Kai, to introduce Jeff, and we'll start from there, all right?
Whee!
All right. So welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Monitor Keeping Podcast. I believe this is episode 16 we're on already. We're coming to you for another interesting episode, one you guys have been requesting for a while, so hopefully you enjoy it. But over to my co-host here, Kai. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad, man. I'm actually really busy, but we always try to find time to get an episode or two in every week, just to make sure we're keeping up with some of the topics and things like that are going on. This week, just to get right into it, which we've been actually trying to record this episode for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting our program, everything like that, all good. But also at the same time, just wanted to really probably save up as many questions and conversations as I can just for this podcast alone. So you guys are in for a good treat. We're going to be talking about some Dwarf monitor stuff. Ackees, of course, will be the first break-in on things with Jeff here. I've got Jeff Easter with GIS Herps. And a lot of you guys may know him for quite a few things. Tegu's, I think he's done quite a few other species, the Gill and just a lot of other lizards like that. And so we'll be kind of talking about just a little bit of everything, but for the most part, we're going to be really getting into Ackees and some other quick topics as well. And so Ackees has been, I would say, probably the most asked for podcasts or questions regarding Ackees and other dwarf monitors have been very frequent. And so we want to try to be able to get as many answers answered on this, any questions answered on this podcast as much as possible. And hopefully Jeff can be able to help us out with hey, how are you doing, Jeff?
No pressure, Jeff.
Yeah, no pressure. All right. Well, I'll do my best. I don't know how many answers I'll have for you, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of back and forth. I've saved some conversation with you too, so we can actually fill it up on the time here. But yeah, some questions I know you've had yourself about the grasshopper stuff and things like that. We'll be able to cover here as well. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, how are things going at the facility now? I think you just recently moved there within the last several months, right, or something like that.
No, actually, we're still struggling trying to get through. We have property. It's family property on 40 acres on the edge of the national forest, Talladega National Forest, and it's gorgeous. It's out there. Mount Cheaha, Alabama. There's a national park right there. So just a few minutes away from the would-be farm. But at present, we are still in Birmingham, in the hood. My neighbors would probably, they would have a conniption if they knew what I had in here, but it's all good.
All those big poisonous lizards.
Just don't eat them. You'll be fine.
Well, I mean, now where you're at is, you were telling us earlier, it's really humid where you're at, right? Like,
oh yeah. I think essentially our weather here in Birmingham is very much like Florida, except for the fact, especially there on the peninsula, you get a nice cross breeze. Yeah, we'll be having none of that here.
It's just sitting on top of you, huh?
Yeah, it's we're in the Birmingham is seated historically in a valley called Jones Valley. So we're kind of in a bowl, and you can actually get some haze going on in the bowl, you know.
It sounds like a magical place.
Absolutely. Lizards like it when it's hot.
Good. Oh man, I don't do well with humidity. It takes me like 2 weeks to just adjust to somewhere new, and yeah, even then I complain so much. I turn into such a
You know
prima
what?
donna.
It's so dry here that when humidity is given to me by Mother Nature, my monitors love it. It's like
Yeah,
hey, we've been expecting this, and yeah, it's been kind of drought here in the valley, and I'd say, man, we probably missed out on a good amount of rain this last winter. So it'll probably rain for maybe a few days, definitely not long, but these last couple of days that were rained for quite a bit. I would say a good full day, and
oh man,
finally getting some moisture in there, and then even the following day was just a bunch of clouds, so it kind of kept the humidity in, and I actually enjoyed that for the short time, the 40 hours or whatever. But yeah, Jeff, now getting right into your Ackees, how many do you have, and what do you have going on with those guys right now?
I got a couple.
and maybe how long you been doing this for now?
Well, I've been playing with reptiles for 29, almost 30 years. On and off, not consecutively the entire time. I had life jump up and beat me around a bit, a few little stints here and there. But yeah, collectively from start to finish, it's been 29, 30 years now, and many, many different species involved along the way. And right now, we're pretty much all monitors, seeing as how Alabama saw in their infinite wisdom with no economic impact to ban Tegu lizards from the state entirely. Not to cause to cross the state line, etc., etc. No, no, no. Whole lots of no. Yeah. So we sold all the Tegus, and we are officially all monitors now, and have been all of this year, as we're legally compliant.
You're in the right place, I guess. You're on the right podcast.
Yeah.
Man, I've been trying. It's funny. I've been trying to get rid of 2 Tegus for better part of like 2 years, maybe 2.5 years now.
Really?
I can't. Yeah, they're just
once they get to a certain size, and, if they're not going to be used for like some type of program or breeding project, and if someone wasn't really like, hey, I really want to pet Tegu, and the animal wasn't nice to begin with, like no one's going to want the Tegu anymore. They kind of just become like another iguana,
to some degree. Yeah.
I've not had any problem selling. Well, I'll take that back. The only Tegus I ever had any problem trying to sell was reds, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But my reds weren't just reds. I mean, if I was going to have a red, this would be what I would have picked anyway. But when Laura hatched out those first anery, I was like, oh, got to have those. And she wouldn't give me a visual. So I got 2 males and 2 females of the siblings that were all 66% possible het for anery. And after several years of breeding them or raising them up, they finally produced for me and proved out all 4 lizards to be 100% het for anery.
And then Alabama says, nope.
Yeet!
You can't do it.
Nope.
It's a really nasty drawback. It's a really nasty drawback.
Yeah.
And I was just about to cross them out to albino red.
Oh man.
No, can't have that. No economic impact. Yeah. Never mind that 5-digit deficit in my annual income.
But you stayed. You didn't leave.
Yeah, well, we got this property here in Birmingham, and then we have the other family property in also Alabama. So,
Yeah.
Unless you're going to liquidate both properties, and that gets into some really hairy, yeah. So, Tegu's had to go. We still got some other lizards. Picked up a new project, something Alan's got. He's got the Flavies.
Yeah.
Or is it Flavy or?
I just call them Flavies. Yeah.
Let's call them Flavies.
Sand monitors for the most part. That's easy enough for me. Oh, the sand monitor.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get any.
I don't know. I think it's is it pronounced Flavorufus or Flavorufus? I think it's pronounced Flavorufus, but
in my experience, these Australian guys they switch it up on us all the time. So over in the other part of what I mess around with the pythons, there's this whole. We've been calling them breadlie for so long, and now they're breadlie pythons. Yet when it comes to other species such as king horni, they're still king horni, not king horny. So this is kind of the joke that keeps going on around over there. Like, no, we got to stay consistent. If it's king horni or if it's breadlie, then it has to be king horny. So
it's
Brettles.
It's Brettles, right?
That's what I just started calling them. It's Brettles pythons. Yeah. I just skipped the whole breadlie thing now, and it's like, well, they kind of got the lion's share of this since it's their continent. They get to tell us how to pronounce it. We just got to roll with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like, I didn't realize that there was such a disparity in pronunciation of all this stuff, So I had Cyclura lewisi, and I did not. I was like, Lewisi? I don't know, what? No, it was named after a fellow named Lewis. Oh, okay. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So then I guess it's just is it a long eye or a short eye?
See, that's where I think we get into all that. Who knows? I guess we need a standard. I don't know if we're going to do it on this show, but we need a reptile standard. We need a reptile hobbyist / professor in ancient Latin to come on and sort this out.
Anyways. The internet's just going to butcher it anyways.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, okay, we're getting off. You had mentioned the sand monitors you're working with. So, of course, we're going to focus on the Ackees today, but what else you got going on?
We also have white throat monitors.
Yeah.
And I've been working with those for a few years, and I haven't been real successful with them, but, our female, she's kind of small. She's on the small side. She's like 3 feet long, kind of cranky. And she supposedly came from a South African zoo breeding project, but maybe so, maybe no.
AKA a farm?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
AKA whatever they said to get more money out of you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's supposed to be. But, I've gotten a few clutches out of her. And, that's going okay. But let's see. So I got those, and I've got the Gill and I. Gill and I are really, really nice. I really like those little guys.
Yeah.
They're not quite as flashy as Ackees as far as the colors and all that go, but they got lots of personality. And if you're spatially challenged, don't have a lot of square footage in the house to have a monitor lizard. Most people think of monitor, it's a 4 foot, 6 foot, Komodo dragon, 10-foot thing or something, but if you're really interested in a monitor, you don't have to go ginormous to have a monitor, and it still be a similar experience as what you'd have with a larger animal.
Yeah, I want to actually get into those in a little while. Well, I say that probably sooner than later, but they are definitely ones that interest me. just because their personalities.
Yeah. Precious is she's awesome. I reach in there and just open the door, and she'll sit there and look at me like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
Go grab a bug and hand it to her, and she'll sit there and look at me, kind of make me work for it a little bit, and then she'll walk up and take it from me. And it's a really cool thing to be able to do with your pets. And she actually will come out to me sometimes, not all the time, but I don't play with all the lizards all the time like that. We have quite a few, so it's kind of hard to put in serious one-on-one time like your average keeper that's got 1, 2, maybe 4 lizards, something like that. Here we keep anything from 40 to surges of 140.
Mm-hmm. Oh man,
a little bit less now since we don't have Tegu.
Yeah.
Which other dwarfs do you have before we get into the Ackees some more?
Well, I did have Kims. Really, really like them. As far as form factor, I really, really like the Kims a whole lot. But they can be difficult.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more fragile and agile, and I would say, on personal experience, so they're a big ass headache, man.
Yeah. I'll go right along with that. The last set that I got was, I had a male and female and kept them for about 2 years or so, and never did get any fertile eggs out of them. And then apparently they must have tussled and essentially killed each other.
Yeah, mine aren't as nice as how most other people think about dwarf monitors. I get a lot of people say they leave all their pairs together. The male doesn't do anything. Man, my males are like right there every single time. The females are getting ready to go and nest. So I always got to pull them out. I always hear people putting males together, and they do fine after the little tussle. My males are literally trying to rip each other's arms off.
Yeah.
Then my trios no longer worked after the very first round. So my issue is I was trying to make the one nest bin work for the trio. The male, he's fine. He's obsolete. He's going to be removed possibly anyways. But let's say leaving the girls around, then they start to fickle and stuff like that over the nest bin. Mm-hmm. Or even let's say he's like tagging one, right? And he's mating with one. The other one is basically right behind her, or even within the same couple of weeks that they're breeding, And so the lay times are, if they're not spaced out enough on their own, the females are laying on top of each other, basically. And then that becomes more of an issue too. So I now have all my Kimberleys separated until it's time to breed. And then when they're breeding, the girls have their own cages, and then the males are swapped or moved around or taken out or whatever. That's where my Kimberleys are at now. It's just in and around nesting. Man, they're so delicate. Everything has to be perfect. The male's got to be really moved out. I mean, I already knew this from my mangroves already that I should be practicing this, but I thought with the dwarf monitors it'd be a little bit easier, right? Not really. I think it's just individual animals,
If it was easy, everybody'd do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny you say that. I with the Kimberly specifically, they are on a lot of people's list.
Oh yeah.
But historically, the prices remain consistent on them. They're not cheap animals.
Oh, no.
And they're hard to find. When they do come around, they go quick. And I mean, they've been around for 30 years or so now. Yeah. And you have to wonder why they're not at the same level as Ackees are or some of the other animals are. out there, and there has to be something to that. They're just a little bit different.
Even the best of us, or even the ones that you would think should land them without a problem, we're all failing somewhere or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think most of us have gone through the troubles of Kimberly's. I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody listening to this and then not get them when they really want it. It's just I wouldn't go into it with Ackie mindset at all. Going into it with a little bit more, even if you got one that, I mean, they're all captive bred, but even if you got one that was well started, I just think they just demand a little bit more respect, even because they're so tiny too. Like you being complacent around their agility or their speed, man, they're gone. They're gone. Yeah.
I wished I'd have had a speed gun to clock my female, man. She was. I'd go to open up the cage and I'd peek in. I could see where she was on the right hand side, and I'd go to lift the lid. And by the time I lifted the lid, there was a bunch of dirt and smoke or dust, and she's gone.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so, yeah, I thought about myself. I was like, man, these. Don't get me wrong. I kind of am ragging on the Kimberleys right now, but I'm doing okay. But I've had to do and fail quite a bit and pay my dues and actually learn the species before any of the sweet baby hatching and all that stuff like that. Lost quite a bit of eggs and babies that were basically developed and then just died at the very last instance. So my learning curve has been a real tough one. I think both Jeff and Alan have gotten, basically my late night messages or early morning messages about how the eggs their babies are doing, and really it's like just cross my fingers and hope for the best. That's the hardest part. And so I really wish to also do Ackees like fully, and if I were to ever stop doing like Kimberleys or it'd be a species like Ackees or something like that, and just do them prolifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. All right, let's do it then. Let's since we're on that note on the Ackees, Jeff, tell us what about Ackees? What got you into them? Start from the beginning. We want the whole history.
Well, let's see. Back, I think it was 2007, I want to say. Believe it was.
That's a time when Dwarf monitors were still pretty hard to come by. Even Ackees.
I was in Utah, and I believe it was Joey Muggleston. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats to Joey, by the way. He just hatched out some peacock monitors.
Yep.
I saw. That's awesome.
So Great Basin Serpentarium for those people listening. Check him out. He's got some awesome stuff going on.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He's real quiet, but he does a lot of awesome stuff.
Yeah, like across the whole board too. All kinds of different stuff.
All good.
But go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
But yeah, I picked up a couple from him, or it could have been somebody else that got them from him. I'm not sure. Claim they got them. I don't remember. I've slept since then.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got them. I really enjoyed them. I mean, at the time I was also breeding African soft-furred rats, and if you ever had any mice or rats or anything like that, they're fun to watch play.
Mm-hmm.
And these Ackees, they played just as much and just as hard as the mice did, but it was always it was just a tussle sort of thing. It wasn't throat biting, side ripping, give me your arm, see if I can pull it off sort of situation.
Right.
But they were fun, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I wound up selling them and then I got more into the Tegu thing. But years later, after I moved back to Birmingham, I had an opportunity to either get some Ackees that were sold to me, presented as red Ackees, not. And I was okay with that because they were going to charge me yellow Ackie price. And I was fairly certain of exactly what it was that I was getting. And it was confirmed after they grew up a bit. But those were top enders.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. With a really, really nice wide white stripe down the back. And that stripe gene is serious.
Yeah, it's intense.
I mean, I've bred 3 generations of those guys. And whenever I would cross it out to just a yellow, almost every baby would get their own stripe.
Nice.
And the actual top enders, even the girls get their own version of the stripe. But where I'm at with them right now is I've got a pair set up. I sold one as a male several years ago because I was positive it was a male. I mean, still a little bit early into really, really figuring out what sex Ackies are and how to tell and this and that. And there's still some that'll make me scratch my head.
Absolutely.
But I sent this girl out. She had a typical male stripe going on. She was huge and everything else. Yeah, it's a boy. Here, have it. So yeah, sent it off, and come to find out, oh, it's a girl. So, but she doesn't like normal little yellow boys. So the top enders, they're more red size. And they try and put her with a smaller yellow boy, and she just beat him. Yeah. So after a couple of years of hearing about all this, and I hadn't seen her since I shipped her out at a few months old, I finally got an opportunity to get her back. So now I've got her with one of our boys, and I initially got her, and I had a boy in mind, and I put the 2 of them in a tub in here in the kitchen floor just to, put them in together and see how they do, because, we just met, and I hear she's got bad attitude with boys and everything. So I had them in here, and they seemed to be okay, kind of checking each other out, whatever. And all of a sudden, I got to pee. So I run to the other end of the house, and I go pee. I come back, and she is biting him across the top of his head, temple to temple, trying to chew on his brain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she didn't break the skin or anything, and he just kind of had a look on his face like, huh? So I separated him out and everything, and beefed him up a bit more. And she was a little chunky, so I trimmed her down a little bit more. And now I put them back together. And as soon as I put them together in a proper enclosure, set up everything, he is all business.
Nice.
Yeah, he is all business, and she is taking her role like she's supposed to. So I named him Buster. As in bust her.
I saw that one coming.
So we'll cross our fingers and see if we get anywhere with that.
Good stuff. So go for it, Guy.
Now, as far as you have how many types do you have right now of Ackees?
I don't have as many as I used to. At one time, I have had, several different bloodlines in house that I was working on and trying to mix them up a little bit. Some of them I would breed straight bloodline, and then occasionally, keep everything healthy, you want to cross out that bloodline to something else, and sometimes you get something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what a lot of us are doing with a few things. It's for one, I mean, there are animals. We're just having fun with them too,
Yeah.
But really, to get to see what the crosses make, or what the hybrids or the intergrades make, it's real interesting. I personally have some myself, a couple of different types of Kimberly looks, and then obviously a few different mangrove mixes together. And my results so far have been pretty decent, but I've seen some other stuff that like really washed out looking Ackees that ended up really brown rather than any other color. Right? It wasn't really on the yellow side or the red side. It was just ended up kind of dull.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I don't really do. I have, as of yet, not on purpose crossed, or even accidentally for that matter, crossed reds and yellows. Have not done that one yet. I have taken several different bloodlines of reds and done some mix and match, or take my top ender yellows and mix them up with other yellows. I've done that, but I haven't done the cross them up, crossing streams, as it were, with the red and yellow. But I know there have been some folks that doing it. Some of them are a little bit more obvious than others.
Now, I've talked to you, Jeff, about some of the ones that I have, and I've shared the pictures and everything, and of course bought them as reds. It's kind of funny. It's like most of the animals you see out there, they're always reds, whether they're no matter how they look, or questionable lineage or anything like that, they're always reds. So they're always priced as reds. So, but I bought these animals as reds. The babies look good. They look like red babies, but they really have developed some interesting colors. So one that real prominent type of white stripe down the back.
Scream yellow right there.
Right. But then those colors, I'm not advocating for people to go out there and cross animals or anything. I bought these as such, and continued to breed these clutch mates together. But man, these, there's some interesting things that popped out, continuing to breed these animals. So, on that note, there are some other lines I work with that I know that are, just reds. I don't work with any yellow specific lines right now. Maybe in the future, but
it'd be a good project to pick up, man. There's not a whole lot of them out there to be had.
I think I'll put some good words in. I might know a guy whose name is Jeff, might be on the podcast right now for some stuff in the future. But yeah, it's a little interesting to see what's going on out there. So
there's so much going on with the Ackees alone. Even if they are like your number one recommended beginner lizard, or they're quite popular, right? There's still, the diversity level. It's kind of gotten a little bit better ever since we got a few imports from Europe not too long ago. But I think before that, I didn't see that many lines out there, or all the different types now that are essentially being sort of mixed together, creating I wouldn't say more red. There's just more variants of it, yeah. So it's just well, I
know something I always found really interesting with this and looking into it, and I'm in a group on Facebook with Frank Reitz as well, and his group, very, very, very small. Apparently it's hard to get in. I don't know. There's like 50 people in it or something, but yeah, he was talking about how he was in error he's the one that brought the red yellow thing.
Hmm.
He was thinking, oh, it's more red. That one's red, and this one looks more yellow. Well, that's a yellow, and just in the early days trying to figure it out, I guess. And honestly, that sounds kind of weird after I've said it out loud, because they were there for how many millennia before Frank Reitz was ever even born. So anyway, but yeah, he said that he shouldn't have called them red and yellow. It should have gone more by locale.
Yeah.
Like if you have a
mountain
Pilbara red Ackie, for instance.
Right.
Or Mount Isa range Ackies, that sort of thing. But what we've done in America and in the pet trade at large, really,
we simplified it.
Well, we've mixed and matched everything so much.
Yeah.
You might say, well, whoa, I've got a GIS Herps red. Okay. I mean, people are going to expect it to look a certain way,
right?
Because my name's attached to it,
right?
But what are you getting? Do you know? I mean, I tried to dig in and find out every morsel of information that I could find about what I'm getting, when I'm getting it. But we're all subject to the last guy's story.
Right.
If somebody lied to him and he perpetuates that lie unknowingly, well, that's the information you got to go with. Sounds like madness, but this is the story,
Oh, it's true not only with Ackees, but I mean,
everything.
Different types of
reptiles. How about those dingoanthus, huh?
Yeah. Another show, Jeff. Another show.
We've been getting better as a community to be more locale specific, more region specific. I think to keep things flush and pure is like what's going on with the boas currently, right? Just the whole BCI or BCC thing. It was a thing where the morphs did get a lot of attention, right? But now to find peers of Surinams or whatever, or Bolivian or whatever boa that is very hard to find in pure form is now the top dollar. You're paying much more now for pure Surinams that are, genuinely to the original look. It's got all the markings, but and so now with the monitor stuff, it's even getting that way with. I'm doing it myself too, but like the water monitors, a lot of them are mixed now. Even imports, I saw Christopher bring in some that came from some Indonesian breeder over there that made like Kamingai crosses and other type of crosses. So America isn't just getting itself purely imports anymore. We're getting some mutts now as well, and so we're also making our own, trying to make something nicer in a sense, or it's whatever we have at our feet at the time. Like myself, where I was just trying to learn mangrove monitors, and so I was mixing them. Now I actually have some mutts that look incredible, and I'm looking to utilize them for my future projects to make peers if I could, because my current peers aren't working well. I have the only pair of peers in America of the Kai Islands, and so they don't hook up well. Then I have my backup that's a cross, and hopefully I can use him as something to make down the line. But still, they'd be, I guess, not. I don't even know the terminology, but basically there was a regular Indicus from Indonesia that carried the Kai Island, right? And in a sense, they look like both a little bit, but I'm trying to breed that Indicus out and still keep the Kai Island going with all the peers that I do have. It's just the one male that I have doesn't really hook up. He has hooked up once, and that's what I have the offspring of now, and that I'm trying to use. But he hasn't hooked up with any of the peers at all. So
So going for the look and the color, basically that represents
going for the look and the color, right? Is the whole thing, but I want it to be just peers bred from peers, not where I use I don't know. I basically use this female as just a carrier, right? If that's the word to use, or it's basically using her body as the shell to carry this genetic line, and the babies are now going to be essentially used for those future projects if I can actually get those to hook up as well. Right. So, there'd be mutts still, though, if I just make 75%. So they're going to be mutts for a while until I can actually get through all the generations to make myself peers, and this is where it leads to our conversation now with how complicated the Ackees are. Or I mean, it's not just Ackees, it's Kimberleys as well. It's the Tristis as well, whether it's the Orientalis or the normal one or the both.
Oh yeah.
It's white throats as well.
Oh yeah, the locales. I had no idea that there was
so many
storm of locale stuff with the white throats until I got some.
Yeah.
And so there's the Cape. Okay, so let's say if we're aiming for a look, right? For white throats, it'd be the Cape Bandits. That's probably highly wanted, right? Or for water monitors, it's the Kamingai or something like that. And then if you muddle it up and you make mutts, then down the line, you're basically going to end up with more muddled looking animals. And so, looking at price range or looking at business down the line, sure, the mutts are kind of cool for the time being, but you really want to end up having peers just for the sake of it. You're losing it down the line is hard. And then you get the confusion of what we're talking about now, where none of us can tell you what our Ackees are. Or none of us can exactly our things are. And so that's the argument where someone, wants to have peer stuff, but we're over here having fun making mutts,
Well, that was the thing I was getting at with the instead of calling the Ackees by locale, we called them by breeder.
Yeah.
Like I've got a boy I had last year. He had at least 5 different bloodlines involved in making him. You got your rare earth, you got your old school rare earth, totally different. But see, now that also kind of gets back into that. Well, these are rare earth. Okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah,
you don't know
which kind, and it's like a thing too where, man, someone can buy you. Let's say you got 3 types, right? And let's just say you had, yellow Ackees, and you had the top enders, and you had the reds going right at whatever given time. Someone's gonna come to somebody else, and then probably also go to your page and be like, this is a picture from this page, and it's another lineage that's also GIS, but what you sold them was this type of lineage from GIS. And so, people really got to get it right. Like, I don't know. It's like nerds selling 4 different types of water monitors right now. I mean, it's a nerd water monitor, but which one did you get?
Right?
Which one?
And even more so with the Ackees, the more confusion. Good grief! So apparently, I can't find it. I did see it. I did read it. I cannot find it again now. But apparently, somebody went and dug into the scale count, I guess, or whatever, between different Ackees, reds and yellows, and discerned that they are all Ackees.
Right. That they're one species now.
Yes. Yes. So it's all Varanus acanthrus now. Or I guess you can drop the second acanthrus because, who cares?
Right.
It's no longer Varanus acanthrus brachyurus or whatever for the yellows. So they're all the same. Now, as far as that goes officially, but I mean, you and I can still look at an Ackie and tell you what went into it.
There's different types, yeah.
Is it straight up yellow? Is it partially red? I'm not sure. It looks this color,
Right.
Yeah.
But there's some traits that are just going to be absolutely screaming one way or the other, like the big white stripe down the back. I mean, that's specifically a yellow thing.
It's hard to judge monitors anymore out of the egg. I mean, like you can have great looking parents, right? But sometimes you mix two things, or you got one that was slightly different, and you don't really know until that thing's like a year or two old. I have like the Kimberleys, when they came out of the egg, they're different, and then now a week later they're different, and then a week after that or 6 months after that, when the colors expanded, I mean, man, they look like totally different things. And price or figuring out what's what is, you don't really know until way later, like way down the line. Yeah.
Basically, good rule of thumb would be to hold back that first clutch, as many of them as you possibly can, and raise them up and see what they're going to look like. And then you'll have a better idea. And not only that, but you'll also have mom and dad pictures and older sibling pictures. This is what yours is going to look like when it gets bigger.
Yeah.
Or all 5 of these lizards, believe it or not, all came from these 2 parents, and all 5 of them look completely altogether different. You're getting the grab bag action.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I see the variation just in the clutch right out of the eggs too on some of these things. It's just like, you got super big spots already. You're gonna have some nice big ocelli, and this one's got smaller ones. This one's got real dark colors. This one's got real light colors, and variations of those colors throughout. You see it right out of the egg. It is. It's an interesting thing we find ourselves in. And then, Jeff, we mentioned the stripe that you'll see a lot of times indicative of yellows. But what some people might not know yet, if you don't have like a lot of these different lines in front of you, there's also different looks to animals too. Whereas some Ackees can look real long and slender, and some get like little tanks, like little beefcakes, bulldogs walking around. And there might also be a difference in what you would consider a normal clutch from some of these animals too, where some might consistently in that line or that look and line give you maybe an average of 6 eggs a clutch, where and they might be big eggs, where another animal will give you 15 smaller eggs. So, you start seeing all these differences that go with some of these looks and lines and everything. It's kind of interesting, how much variation there can be when everything's still considered an Ackie.
Right. And typically your clutch size difference and egg size difference as well is also going to be associated with, well, what flavor is it? Your reds, that's going to be the ones that gives you the bigger eggs and the smaller clutch. Typically, not always. You're going to have some outliers out there. I've got a fella that I got some Hendrick reds. And again, they were reds, but exactly what went into it when Hendrick got hold of those and made them and exported them to America and everything. I don't know. They look good. Matter of fact, they look really good. They looked just like the original founder red animals. I was talking with Frank one day, and he sent me a picture of his founder female. And she looked exactly precisely like these females that I hatched out. So I sent one to my buddy, and or 3 actually, and he got them to produce, and 2 of them laid enormous clutches. I think he got 24 out of 1 female.
Wow.
That's insanely huge.
Yeah. Big red girl. Big old red girl. She's like 20, 21 inches, 22 inches, something like that. Big old red girl.
Man.
I never got no clutch.
Right.
But it could happen. Apparently.
What is the biggest clutch to date that you've got?
Me?
Yeah.
Ackees? 15, 17, something like that.
Okay.
I was gonna guess 18.
17.
I like the smaller clutches.
Yeah, I think I have a female that pretty much gives me like an average of 6 eggs on her clutch, right? And
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with those mouths needing to be fed at the time they come out. Yeah. Well, the guys that do white throats and black throats or high yielding eggs like 30 count, no.
Yeah, something else I've noticed is that my female that'll usually be somewhere between, I would say, 9 and 14 eggs. 14 my highest, but she's hit that number a couple times. Is that she will breed like twice a year, which is fine. But the animal that usually is about 6 eggs in a clutch, it seems like she's on this 45 to 60 day turnover. Where she's just going, and it's almost like she turns off with the season. If I start letting that affect the room more and cooling down a little bit more, then she shuts down. Otherwise, it gets a little scary, to be honest. I don't want to, not that she's shown any signs of malnutrition or anything, but it's still, I'm looking at this thing like, how do you do that? How do you keep spitting these eggs out, every 45 to 60 days?
They'll do it, man. You just have to support them. That's all you can do. There's, unless you change something in their environment, they're going to do what they're going to do. You keep throwing food at them, and if they're happy, they're going to make more.
Yeah, this is true.
I mean, I've got a enclosure set up in here in the kitchen, and that's the one that I had my original top enders in, and I had those guys together, raised them up, did turn out to be a pair, but she wound up having 7 clutches from her first clutch. 12 months later, she had 7 clutches within that 12 months.
Whew.
Yeah,
that's insane,
man. I think I have a female Kimberly right now on 6 or 7, and we're now into the year.
Yeah,
she started right around January, right, something like that. And now into this month, she just laid another clutch. It's like every 15, 18 days, something like that. They're machines if you support them, and it's not just feeding. It's the nest. It's it basically is your key thing. If you can keep that the way they like it. Man, I never realized how moist and sand. I use more sand and moist with my Kimberlies than I do with my Indicus. It's just something I realized that they like better, and when it's moist, it holds the tunnel right, just good enough for them.
Well, with the Kims specifically, I was checking out. I got to thinking about things. My first Kims, they came from Canadian Cold Blood, Brandon up there. And so they were imported, and this guy, I got to thinking about it. Well, wait a minute, hold on. So he's breeding what? I mean, you name it, and he's got all this cool stuff, and they're mostly in the dwarf monitor realm, tree monitor, small area. Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, so obviously he is successful enough to be able to not just have plenty to offer and built a name, but he's exporting them to another country on the regular. So he's got to be doing something right. Let's go check him out and see what he's doing. So I found this video, and it's a Kimberly rock monitor digging a nest or maybe he was about to go dig in after she had been in there. Long story short, he used a clear plastic tub, something like you'd put bugs or something in. He used a clear plastic tub, and it was full of 100% play sand.
Yeah. And
That's
just
it.
water. That's it. Play sand and more water than you think. So if it's like, I always use the consistency comparison to like the sand at the beach, right? And so, if you're able to clump it and hold the ball and all that stuff like that, then it works pretty good. But if it doesn't, and even if it slightly holds a ball, it's not enough. I don't know. I've had to add more water and mix it up a little bit for her to really enjoy and dig it. I seen her like the other day where she was digging it and realizing that I think the entrance kept on collapsing a little bit, and so I would add more water, and then I just stirred it up a little bit more, and then she just laid right after that. So man, it's
well, see, now for my Gill and I use a nesting box of sorts. I've got the hollow stump set up for them. Since they're a smaller lizard, max out around 16, 17 inches for the boys. I figured I'd use this artificial tree stump. It's hollow, look great. Can't find them now. Mad about it. But I found them at the name brand was Surreal, and it was from Tractor Supply Company. The finish on it's a little bit shiny. That's the only complaint I had about it, except for they formed roots in their mold, and she would dig down to the very bottom in the notch of the roots, and she would tuck her eggs up in there, so it was kind of a pain to collect them.
Yeah, but I love that look. I love when you shared it, where you shared it. I thought that was an awesome idea. I actually went looking for them, and around me, they were all sold out. I didn't want to pay shipping for a bunch of them.
You can just make your own now with a little bit of foam and wood and zoopoxy.
Yeah,
I need to.
Yeah, I haven't tried that one myself yet, but I was working on the next Gill and I enclosure, and I was looking for the same thing, and I couldn't find it. And the best thing that I could find was this Martha Stewart thing. Is like, I don't know, $60 for it, and then you got to pay for it to get shipped and tax or whatever. Well, I looked at the pictures and it looked okay. I mean, it was a little bit on the light side, but I was thinking, well, that'd be nice contrast against the Gill and I and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, I get the thing, and it looks like it's literally whitewashed. I mean, whitewashed, like Tom Sawyer got hold of that sucker and did her on up. It's great.
It wasn't it.
Do something with that.
Wasn't it supposed to? It's a fake stump? Is it for like a key hide or something like that?
Oh, I was going to use it for nesting.
No. But what it was originally intended for?
Oh, it's a flower pot.
Oh, a flower pot. Looks realistic and just all white, right? And just lay it out in the garden.
Yeah.
Either way, I think it's still a great look to it, great idea, except for that problem you mentioned where if the female is going to put her eggs, and in my experience, every nest box I have, the female puts her eggs all the way down in the corner somewhere. It's one of the corners, so just keep digging all the way to the bottom and dig up a corner, and you only got 4 choices, so you'll find it eventually.
Even in the very, very, very edge where you think that the eggs wouldn't be, they're all lined up there, and that's like where you're digging and your finger can't get to there. And, and if you put too much pressure, you'll smash them. So
exactly.
You gotta dig just softly enough, and then it's like enough pressure, but not enough pressure, you'll drop them or something like that. So
you know what I use now? I have a dustpan. It's just wide enough to fit like inside of the nest box, and I got a little hand broom, and I'm just using that to sweep. Like a little archaeologist in the into the dustpan, and then put that into another bucket, because too many times I've dug too fast and rolled an egg or something off the top. Now, fortunately, when you get to them quick enough, it really doesn't matter too much. But it's still that oh no moment when you do, or you're rolling an egg comes flipping out.
Oh yeah, been there, done that. Go digging. Well, there's no eggs in here. Pop. Oops.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did that to a Tristis egg. I think 2 clutches ago.
It's always like, oh man, I've been waiting to dig these out. You might be in a rush, man. You got to take a breath in between digs. I don't even thrash around soil anymore. Every handful comes out, so every handful goes into another bin. So that way you're careful because you'll churn soil, and the thing is that you want space to turn it evenly. So if you have more soil that you already dug up in the corner, then you actually can't really theoretically have it all evened out. So I take out every handful, it goes into another bin, every handful comes out. So that way it's if I know that corner is empty, I've already dug there, nothing's there anymore, and I can just push soil that I did dig or that I haven't dug yet and shove it into that corner. And then that way it's like you're digging through it evenly, or else you're just digging a foot down and then you have to push it to the side, dig it again. Yeah, it's a big headache. I remember I used to dig eggs that way. I realized, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
That's another thing. A lot of people don't realize how important it is. I mean, if you're going in, getting Ackees or any of these dwarf monitors, you go and make an enclosure for them. Now, they're smaller critters, so you can have a smaller box. And, you'll want to have a good substrate dam. So that may wind up meaning that if you're using a smaller enclosure, that your viewing window is going to be smaller. But what you need to make sure of is, well, how big are you? And can you get in after those eggs without causing yourself pain?
Yeah. Back pain. And having to lean over at an angle, but also lift up 200-300 pounds of soil. That's
I purposely add in the cocoa core into sand just to lighten up the nest box when I got to pull it out. Just because I'm getting older, man. I could feel my back start to cry a little bit sometimes as I'm trying to get that nest box out of there, and it never helps either when you have to make that decision to pick up the whole thing. And sure enough, it's like, okay, I got to do this in one movement. And then here comes the curious monitor running right into the spot that is going to be the most dangerous for that animal to get squished,
Sit there and look at you like, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Where's food?
Or test your finger.
I'm always like, get the hell out of the way, man.
Yeah, I figured that one out pretty quick. It's better to just take everybody that lives in there and put them somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot simpler. Get a bin, shove them in a bin, throw them in a cage, an empty cage.
Stick them in a bag, draw them a little bath water, throw them in the tub, whatever, man. I mean, out of the way. That way you don't get bit. They don't see you're digging through and an egg rolls down and white egg, wow, and they go tag it.
Man.
And, it's in their mouth, not in your incubator. And just
luckily,
skip all that noise, separate them from the situation.
Yes. Luckily, I can kind of cue in when to remove the male, because it's always been a habit of mine to now remove the boys, even though I don't want to. Right, I have to. And so,
yeah. Especially after you get people paying attention to what you're doing. Ooh, I want one of those. Arr! Like Lauren.
Right.
Oh man. Yes.
I want 2 of those.
I want 2 also.
She's like one of my real treasured animals, right? I mean, I love them all, but like she's the meanest one that I have. Like
really?
Yeah, she bites, and then you'll put your hand just anywhere in the vicinity of the mouth, and it's a
that's you, Kai. That's in response to how you've treated her, being the only blue one in there, and you've made her this little princess now, and so she acts that way. You should have started her off right, barely giving her this or that.
You just taste good, Ty.
She actually is. She gets the least love too, because she's so I take pictures of her, right? But man, I don't work with her too much because she's more so just unpredictable. She can be chilling there, but man, it's just the biting. It's the random biting because it's all of a sudden. That's the thing with mangroves, or I think any real cunning, mean female. She's gonna play nice for like the instance, and then you let your guard down, and bam, she bites you somewhere. So, she's smarter
I've only ever had one mangrove. It was one of the first. Actually, I'd forgotten all about that. I had, well, I mean, back 1992. I slept since then.
Yeah.
But I had the first and only mangrove that I've had. That was a gorgeous, gorgeous animal. I wound up, a buddy of mine ran a tattoo shop, and we'd been talking about going to the reptile symposium in Tennessee. And he's like, yeah, cool. Hey, man, how about you take this snake and trade it for something mean and nasty that looks cool? I'm like, huh? Okay. So we took a 12-foot Burmese python up there, and the way he picked was weird because he had two different ones, and he was going to pick one, and the one that he sent with us is the one that came to him, and I'm glad that it was that one because she was sweeter. The other one was mean and would tag you in 16 stitches later.
Oof.
Yeah. But anyway, we took this Burmese to the reptile symposium in Tennessee, and finally found somebody that was willing to trade, and we got a 4-foot Nile monitor that actually wasn't too terrible.
Nice.
And a mangrove monitor that was absolutely gorgeous, and I've never seen another one quite like her since. But she was so smart. She was black, and her head, it's like the skin on her head was pulled so tight, it looked like she was, there wasn't anything wrong with her. It just kind of a visual sort of thing, but she was eggplant purple on her head.
Oh, man.
She was so black. And then her spots were pretty sparse and very, very gold colored. I hadn't seen one like her since, but she was smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, people tell me mangroves, or actually a lot of monitors back in the days, we don't see them here nowadays. We have a totally different type of localities and islands being collected from now. Different things. You don't see what you used to get back in the days so much anymore.
Yeah.
I think people tell me that they used to see really, really even myself, seeing some pictures from circa 90s and circa early 2000s. Yeah, we don't get those anymore. Islands have been closed off, protected,
right,
or things like that. Basically, either
or cut down. Trees have been cut down. Yeah.
So there's no more. Yeah, so that's another thing. We get some animals from after the fact of deforestation.
Right.
Yeah, after the fact.
So we're gonna have to rename this the Ackie-ish episode.
That's all right, man. We got it's all monitor stuff related. Right. I hope you guys are applying what we're talking about to Ackees anyways, because
very much a lot of it is just monitor related in general, and it works. But to get back on the topic, Jeff, tell us how do you set up your animals, specifically Ackees? How do you set them up?
Well, with I know a lot of people when they first get their pets, they want you know, a lot of them want to go all out naturalistic and just make it this amazing zoo finish thing that they put their baby into immediately after they get it, which, you know, you can do that.
Sounds nice.
I mean, is it advisable? I mean,
Right.
well, look at it this way. If you want this thing to be your little shoulder dragging buddy, you can go in there and put your hand in the enclosure, have it climb up your arm, go up to your shoulder, and hang out with you. Having 1,400 hiding places is probably not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like to set them up a bit more Spartan, you know, more sparse. You got a good basking area, maybe a reed stack or river rock directly underneath the basking light, and a couple of little hiding spots, several inches of sandy substrate. These days I go about 70% sand, 30% organic topsoil. A lot of people would just go get potting soil, and you know, it's wrong. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, for the listeners out there, look into your soil. Okay. There's a lot of information already out there. There's a lot of good choices, but at the same time, there's bad choices too. Potting soil has a lot of different additives in it that plants need, but could be harmful to your animals. So look at what's what. There's good information for what organic, as Jeff was saying, topsoils you can use that don't have any of these extra additives. You know, you're not trying to grow a 10-foot tomato plant in 2 months. You're keeping animals in there.
as a rule of thumb for me, pretty much any kind of sand that says play sand, that's pretty okay. But the topsoil, that's the harder find. Now there's one that I used for years and I can't seem to find it now. And I talked to other people, other places, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they sell it at Lowe's." I hadn't seen it, but it was Earth Grow topsoil, and it's not like this great soil or anything. I mean, it's fantastic if you're looking to fill that hole in your front yard that you almost broke your ankle in while you were pushing the lawnmower last time.
Yeah.
It's for that. It's got little stones and sticks and stuff. You might even find a little piece of plastic or something in there. But the point is, it's a sandy dirt with other natural stuff in it, which is fine. But a lot of these in the cheaper stuff, that seems to be a big factor too.
Yeah.
If you go and find a bag of dirt and they want $7 for it, that ain't the one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You
or,
know,
or anything more
bio dude or something like that. But
you know, like for myself, another avenue to really go to for the guys that are looking to set up, and let's say you do want to do a fair amount of soil later on, or you're just learning how to use nesting and you got to actually apply that to your setup when they're bigger. You know, buying the bags from Home Depot or Lowe's, that can add up, you know, especially when you're doing square footage and you're doing depth. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 bags of each of that for even a 4x4. That's not enough. And so, you know, I use rockery places and places that are like lumber yards. They basically have cement sections where they have heaps and piles of this that you buy by the square foot. So if you're in the areas of those, I mean, you know, lumber yards are pretty far and few in between. It's really just where a lot of people buy your gardening stuff or everything for your whole yard. You're buying it there rather than buying 50 individual bags to do your whole yard, you know. And so it's a little bit cheaper probably maybe only a couple dollars cheaper, but still it counts. And especially if you're doing it by the square foot, you can basically get a little pickup truck, fill that pickup truck for a certain amount, and then head off. That's another cheap route. I myself have had the same problem, Jeff, where finding bedding in a consistent, I don't know, in a consistent supplier or a consistent brand has been a little hard. So my soil base kind of always changes whenever it really just depends on what I can find. The sand is always easy to find, right? Play
Yes.
sand or whatever, it's easy to find. But the soil, I mean, I can go as simple as using Eco Earth, and then it's the fine consistency already. So I'll use that, mix it with sand, maybe add some more sand, add leaf litter too, so it gives it more of a natural cut, right? And then, but now I use this
Eco Earth specifically, I will not use period at all with any little bug eaters. Period. For nothing. Why?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah. Well, it's okay to use if you sift it. So here's my beef. The stuff, when you look at it real close, a lot of it, most of it, actually, it has little hair-like strands in it.
Yeah.
You ever notice that?
The fibers, yeah.
Yeah. So you got some little hair-like strands. I mean, not like hair like your hair, but hair like a horsehair brush lost a bristle. That kind of strand in there.
That's the coconut hair, all right?
Yes. So when you have a little bug eater in there, and I watched this happen myself to some of my first red Ackees that I got after I moved back here to Birmingham. I picked up 3 of them, and they were absolutely glorious and little awesome cricket assassins. And in being that there was 3 of them, they do their little pecking order thing, and they're always, they want to grab their food and run away from everybody else so I can choke it down real quick so I can maybe be able to get another one before somebody steals this one out of my mouth.
Yep.
Well, I was looking at these guys running around in there and admiring them, and then I looked down at the substrate and I noticed, wow, there's some of those fine hair-like strands in there. That could possibly be a problem because they're very much like the antenna on their prey, just a little bit thicker, ever so slightly a little bit thicker than your cricket antennas. So a lot of times when they get that in their mouth, they'll be able to discern between bug and trash and spit out the trash with their tongue. Mm-hmm. In this particular instance, he was worried about brother coming over and stealing bug out of his mouth. So he choked it all down.
Oof.
He had a piece of coconut core and a cricket, choked it all down. He went from junior bug assassin to dead in 2 days.
Oh man.
Jeez. Yeah, I haven't had any
not digestible.
Just yet.
Me personally, I would suggest if you are insistent on using Eco Earth, coconut core of any type, plantation soil, whatever they want to call it, if you're going to use that crap, sift it really, really good first.
Good to know. I haven't had that experience. I use a lot of it. I just haven't had that experience. But to know that happened, well, then again, I can't say that I really use it too much in the baby enclosures at all. It's mainly in the nest box mixed with other things.
And there I'd probably be fine. But I kind of blurted out and all that. But I've got a big beef with that because.
No, I understand where even an adult might be able to pass some debris just because of its overall size when it gets bigger. Having some, because I'm very familiar with those fibrous hairs in there, having a little guy choke one of those down, I can understand how it could probably cause some complications. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that hair is probably as long as that animal's stomach is, so or longer.
Yeah, it balled up in his belly, and his belly turned black. And I mean, what the hell are you going to do with it? Things like, I don't know, 5 inches, 6 inches long. What are you going to do with that? Surgery?
Right.
Shit.
Get in there. Get in there with some tweezers. Pop them open. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Surgery on a 6-inch animal that's going to cost 4 times what you just spent on a thing, and he probably won't live anyway,
Right. Well, good to know, though. And for all the listeners out there, too, because it's something I've never had an issue with, but definitely take some caution with in the application for using it.
And honestly, that seems to be the general consensus from other people when I lay out my beef like that. And that seems to be what everybody else says too. But I was in the room. I watched it. I know that's what happened to it. And then he died in my hand. I couldn't do a damn thing about it. So here's my experience. Take it for what you will. It cost me $500 in heartache.
Yeah. Oh, that's the worst feeling. Not in that same situation, but to have that animal or an animal die on you and there's nothing you can do. That is just horrible. And I can understand it causes some, hesitancy with whatever you're using, whatever the circumstances around it were, I'd shy away from some stuff for sure. So
yeah, I myself, I use that sunshine sphagnum moss. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it. It's a big black bag. It's only like $4 or $6 at Home Depot or Lowe's, and it comes in a pretty good size block. But I use that mixed with the play sand a lot. There's quite a few other things that you can utilize. I really wanted to use Reptisoil, but I just didn't feel like paying $25 a bag. It's just for what I need it for. If it was a small cage or I just needed little cages, fine. But not when you got to do like 17 of those, 20 of those bags,
right. It's funny. Side note, not to totally sidetrack us, but because of the space out here that I do have to do something like this, I've thought about almost making a monitor specific like compost pit of soil. So just turn in something with sand in it. I live pretty close to a river, so turning some of that dirt in there with leaf litter and some other natural organic materials that are in the area. We don't really spray or use chemicals where we live for anything. But always having that go-to, something that you can turn that is broken down and become that loamy, sandy soil we've always been looking for. Just an idea that I'm messing around with in the back of my head, because people use compost pits for gardening and all their other stuff. Why can't we let some stuff break down naturally outside so we can have a plan to go get it next year? Take some buckets full off your own land or your own property.
It's keeping up with it. It becomes a chore.
Yeah.
So, because to keep at the rate that you might be throwing stuff in there, it all depends on your rates. So if you're like got a really good size thing and it's average heat and it's not blaring, all that stuff like that, and you're turning it regularly, I feel like the soil is fine, because then it'll basically not it'll overdevelop all this moisture and wetness, right? And so that's what happens if you overload it without churning it, and it doesn't get to rotate and breathe on its own to create the soil. There needs to be all the mess. There basically has to be like space in between all the debris, so that way actually air and all that stuff like that can, for one, escape, but also help with the breakdown, right? So if you have a ton of waste, bro, and it's not being turned enough, and at the same time retrieved and all that stuff like that, it'll just be a nasty, wet, soggy mess. I'm not sure if you've seen that before, but it's when a compost just there's just so much going in there without it being worked on, so the compost myself becomes a whole workout.
See, well, I have 2 kids. I'm taking notes here, Kai, on what they need to do. So
Yeah,
I'll get them a cement mixer and put them to work.
they gotta get like a pitchfork, turn the
Yep.
soil in there. Yeah, turn that.
Wake them up at first light, like some little farmers, and get them out there. So getting back to it, Jeff. We covered kind of said what you mentioned for what you like for soil or substrate. You mentioned the reeded stack, and what about heat and lighting and the other aspects of the cage? Humidity, water availability. What do you like to do?
Right. I get the humidity question a whole lot, and basically nothing scientific. Here's my science for you. We call it the finger method.
Yeah.
You go and jam your finger down and into the dirt as far as you can go and pull it back out. Does the dirt cave in on itself? You need water.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple. And your humidity, Dave Kaufman did a video where they went to Australia, and he had presence of mind to take a couple of instruments with him, and he was testing temperature and humidity down inside the burrow that he found.
Yeah.
And the humidity right there just inside the burrow, I mean, he didn't like jam his arm all the way down the hole or whatever, but it was reading almost 99% or whatever right there.
Yeah.
So the depth of substrate is important with the Ackees as far as your humidity goes.
Yeah.
What's out in the box itself is not nearly as important as what is underneath.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
And it's the Swiss Army knife of keeping monitors is your depth of substrate. If they need a hide, they can dig a hide. If they need help getting that old yucky shed off, they can dig down in there and get that moisture and get that assistance that they need. If they want to deposit some eggs, they're going to be able to do that too. I mean, it's so useful. So it's really, really important if you're going to have a monitor lizard, especially one that likes to dig like Ackees do, you need to get the substrate correct. Yeah. And it's really kind of an art form as far as trying to keep your humidity good. A lot of times I'll go and I use a pump sprayer like you would spray bugs with or whatever, Of course, it's never ever seen anything but water, no chemicals at all, and bought for that purpose. So I use that to spray a couple times a week, and then if necessary, I'll just straight up dump some water in the substrate right where the basking site is.
I guess
where it all will evaporate from fastest.
It's a good section right here where I think a lot of beginner Ackie people have problems with loss of tail tips and toes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the topic right now would be ideal to keeping the integrity of your toe tips and tail tips intact and basically having your animal look sharp, right? I see it all the time where someone's trying to resell some Ackees or something like that, or any Dwarf monitor, and most of them have been missing toes or tail tips, and I mean it just looks horrible, And so, for you guys that have your own, there's gonna be some conflicting issues because you would think Australia is like hot and dry because it's a desert or something like that, and these animals it's blistering hot, and what you're used to as hot could be really dry, but where these animals are from, and also the microhabitats that Jeff mentioned, that if you were to go deep down within the soil and in their burrows and such like that, that's where that extra humidity would be. And then in our cages, it'd be relative, where like the bulb would be like 30 around the bulb would be 30 to 50% humidity, but in other parts would be maybe 60 to 70%. And then deep down, it's nearly goddamn 100 or something. And if you're if you have those those temperature gradients, and then you apply that deep soil. For me, I've had to learn it myself. I just use nest bins, but I've been adding deep soil to the whole enclosure because it actually the depth and all that stuff like that with the added heat in the cage creates this density. Now, the mix up here can be where you lose your toes as well, not just from being dry and you thinking that it's being the shedding issue, right? Which is also that's one issue. The other issue is mistaking wetness with humidity, and that's where people can also end up with bumblefoot, where they basically end up with a ton of blisters on their animal, and these
Yeah.
blisters can basically damage the foot because the toes are so thin and the tail tips are so thin on some of these animals that the blister itself can cause such a damage that the finger is going to be once it heals the finger is hanging on by a thread, and so anything can basically break that off, and typically during the drying process you're going to lose that finger possibly. And to help prevent you guys from doing this, the right thing would be to add depth of soil, but then to add you should already be adding levels to climb. But what I do is I add a top level of dryness. So let's say whatever bucket that I have, and it's just dry soil, and I've done my full on mixing, and I've done my adding cups of water to certain corners, turning that corner up, mixing it up really well. That's kind of damp, pretty moist in a sense, right? Where that's the humidity, that's where the humidity is going to derive from. But if you throw your Ackie on top of all that wetness, it can might as well get bumblefoot from being too wet. So I throw dry stuff on top of the wet stuff just so there's a buffer in between, and they're actually not getting onto anything at all, but the humidity is still present to be able to develop within the moist soil that's deep down. And this is going to help you guys out that are just starting out with losing toe tips and tail tips. And that's how you figure out if you have enough water or not. It's those two occurring things where it's too dry, brittle, your stuck sheds, all that stuff like that, and then it's too wet. So there's a balance here, and that's where
You know,
you have
to be
understand.
totally candid too, I want to say I knew this. I want to say I know this information, but there was a time I had a setup that I think at the time there was a lot of little babies from different clutches hatching out. But I had one setup where I started seeing some issues with toes for these three animals that were in there. And that's not an issue I usually have. So I hit up Kai, those emergency messages that we kind of joke about. But I'm like, what am I doing? And just kind of to recenter my thinking, he said just what he just said, is some elevated places where they can get away from things, dry stuff out. And sure enough, I'm looking through all the baby cages, and I have different elevations. I have this going on in all the different ones. I think getting a little, what would I say, complacent with these babies. I had set them up. I had thrown some different cork tubes in there and whatnot, but it wasn't set up in a way that they were always going right under the cork tubes. They weren't in the cork tubes themselves. They were going under the cork tubes into the dirt. And the way that I had this setup was that there was minimal ventilation, so it would keep good humidity, but these animals were always choosing to be in this wet spot in the way that I had thrown things in there. And so, those animals are still with me. They're not going to see the light of day or the market. They're not things I would make available, but
They ended up with the blisters too, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was minimal. I didn't get any blisters, but I did lose a couple toe tips. And it was a slap in the face to a little bit of a wake up, like, hey, make sure you're doing this on every setup, every cage, so you're not running into this problem. I felt, completely stupid for it, but it's definitely something. Pay attention to those things. And I guess not to ramble on, but Jeff, something you mentioned with the bioactive enclosures, understand those can sometimes be dangerous too. If you're trying to keep houseplants alive and this fancy jungle greenery alive in an animal's cage that's adapted to live, adapted to live in the desert, unless you're growing underground plants that grow in the substrate somehow, you're not really going to have that. I don't even know if that's a thing. I'm just trying to, I guess, make a point with that,
Well, some things that I've seen people get into, and hey, I was just actually digging through some of my stuff the other day, and I found where I had purchased some of this crap and thought better of it and left it in the box. And that would be excavation soil.
I got a couple bags sitting there.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds great. You look at it on the surface. Oh, okay, so you can get it moist and you can make a tunnel and little mountain thing, whatever, and it sounds great and wonderful and whatnot. But what do you mean it reconstitutes if you get it wet? Well, I'm going to have to spray these guys and make sure that they're moist, and if you do that, then it's reconstituted, and it is clay, and when it gets dried out again, it's going to harden again, and so that causes big problems with tail tips, overall general shedding problems, toes go bye-byes, all these things. And additionally, with the big time naturalistic rig and everything, when you first get your pet and you want it to be all great and wonderful and whatnot, and you go throw a fistful of crickets in there and you see it eat two. Well, you've got 400 hiding spots in there because you've made this fantastic enclosure, and baby that you just got, he just turned a month old last week, and you just got him. Yay, congrats. Well, he's still learning how to hunt, and you've thrown way too much food at him, and he didn't eat it all. And you go throw some more at him the next day, and next thing you know, well, I'll be damned, these bugs, they like food. They're hungry. They got nothing to eat. Baby toes, baby tails.
Yep.
Each time.
And you'll have little tiny crickets. You'll be a cricket breeder. That's what will happen.
Yeah. Been there, done
that. Yep.
I myself, for the baby monitors, I just bowl feed. Even if you have to use a tall 24, 30 ounce deli cup, right? Yeah. They're agile enough to get in and out of the cup, and you don't lose any of the bugs. They kind of stay there, I just bowl feed.
Bug bowls are fantastic.
If you can use these bowls, I'm talking to a guy right now, actually. But it's a contraption where it will fit like your like 3.5, what is it, 4-inch deli cup, and you set them inside of those, but it attaches to the side of an enclosure, so they will actually hold the bowls still.
You're talking to Edward?
Yeah. So using that contraption basically, so I can raise it up just, a quarter of an inch off the substrate, and they can see something moving inside of there. They will be able to access it through some sticks or some type of enclosure furniture in there.
I just want him for water cups. He's supposed to be sending me some. So I just want to elevate them off of the ground because I have a lot of crock bowls sitting on the floor.
Yeah, same thing I want to do. So water cups, and Jeff, I wanted to get this. How do you offer your animals standing water all the time?
Absolutely, all the time.
And how do you keep it clean, sir?
Well, they will generally run through it. And they'll get it all nice and dirty. And one thing I've noticed, I believe that if you've got one that's constantly filling your water bowl up with dirt, they're saying, hey, dude, I need more water.
Mm-hmm.
They want their substrate to be more moist, and they're filling up the water bowl with it could be inadvertent, but I've seen it happen a fair amount, and they can't tell me what they mean, but I kind of, it's an implied thing.
Yeah. We've seen it in snakes where they will actually go leave their like a clutch of eggs and go go sit in the water bowl and then come out and drag that moisture along with them back into the nest box or into the cage itself to kind of up the humidity. So it's absolutely possible from your own observations. It sounds like it's definitely a thing that could be going on. But I intend to use those same cup holders like Kai was saying for not only food so that I can dump some roaches in them without them tipping the bowl over, but also for water in an effort to try to keep the water.
That's the only thing for food. The monitors, they just lift up the cup out of the thing. So I gotta find a way to wait. If it was like a weighted cup or a clip-on cup and that held it in place, that'd be cool. I think the cups just sit in there though. Yeah,
it's funny on that note. I have some gargoyle setups, and this pair of gargoyles, they geckos, those little cups, those little gecko cups that you put their little mix in. Yeah. When they get tired of it, they actually flip it out onto the ground in the enclosure. So I haven't seen them do it yet, but there's been enough times now where I've had a cup flipped upside down on the bottom of the cage that I'm like, all right, guys, throwing a little fit, want something new. And so I wouldn't be surprised if animals did the monitors did the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing that I'm going to test it out with the Gill and I is they've got an elevated bug bowl and they have an elevated water bowl. Mm-hmm. And the new enclosure I'm picking at is those two pieces are one. It's like a dog dish, with water on one side and food on the other side. It's just elevated and it looks like a rock.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that that's going to work out really good. The adults that I've got set up, the Gill and I, with the elevated bug bowl and the elevated water bowl, it works really good. They still go and run through the water. And, of course, you get a bunch of crickets that want to find the water and go die in it and turn it all gross and everything and just dump it out and pour some fresh water in it. It'd be fine. But
I use something similar. I use the big like rock ledges that are the magnets that have that hole cut out for the a dish to go in their deli cup or something. I do use those with the Peacock and the Timor monitors because they're so shy. Sometimes they don't want to leave whatever log they're hidden in. So what I've done is I've basically attached those with the magnets, usually to the front glass. I've set up usually it's a vertical piece of like a cork tube that they're hiding down in. And so this is basically right at the top. So they can peek their little head out, they can grab some bugs and disappear. And it seems to work pretty well for me. I just haven't used it in the more, I guess, terrestrial species because they're kind of in 3 foot of space up above the ground, not that that's that much, but it's just how they use it. So I know it can work. I just haven't tried it with stuff like the Ackees.
Yeah, should be fine because it's all space relative. It's all 3 foot. 3 foot's 3 foot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just how it is mentally. If I put the cork tubes vertically instead of horizontally in my head, it's arboreal now.
A 3 foot cage, a 3 foot cage.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man! Now, hey Jeff, with your current diet, hopefully this will be leading into the grasshopper stuff. But what are you using now as far as your base or your main staple for the dwarf stuff?
We go through 9,000 to 10,500 crickets every 3 weeks.
Wow.
And that's the general.
9,000, you said?
Yeah. 9 to 10.5 every 3 weeks.
So every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks. Okay.
Every 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I get 3/4 inch crickets because in banded I get them from Gans through their great breeder program. If you're if you can stand to take on at least 5,000 in a minimum order,
Yes, sir.
That's the best way to go. But I get the 3/4 inch, so that gives them a little bit of size, so they're acceptable immediately. But it also gives them a little bit of room to grow and makes them live a little bit. And they don't chirp.
They don't chirp yet.
That's right.
You know, I've also found that the 3/4 inch, they either label them as 3/4 inch or like 4 weeks or something.
Yeah,
on the box
that's the same thing, right?
Yeah. So, but the large, the 1 inch or large 6-week crickets, I've also noticed, especially in the summer, they tend to die off a lot quicker. I will get a lot less in a shipment of bugs. Whereas the 3/4 inch, it seems like they just do naturally better. I don't know exactly why that is, but it's something I've definitely noticed.
The large too are also sometimes already expired adults. Like they needed, they're at the last leg of life anyways. All they got to do is lay and die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, you're getting those crickets. Are you? Do you have any kind of rotation to get them feeding for you, like gut loaded, as far as what you're feeding the crickets?
Yeah. Actually, I grind up my own roach chow and I feed it to everybody.
Okay.
Nice. What's the consistency of the roach chow?
Sorry?
What was your consistency of roach chow? This is where I learned the percentages of proteins and the proper usage for insects.
Mm-hmm. Well, I won't give you everything, but there's 4 ingredients and the primary part of it, and you can totally get away with just this one by itself and be fine. And that would be 18% non-medicated chick feed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's the good stuff.
Don't want more protein than that because you'll have problems. But yeah, that's a great basis. Something inexpensive, and really, I should do vegetables for their moisture, but I do use the
water crystal.
Water crystals. Yeah, I hate those things, but it's convenient and inexpensive comparatively.
Yeah, so that is true.
Yeah, the whole any more protein or too much protein, what does it do to them, Jeff? I forget.
It will give them gout.
So it will give the lizards gout through the feeders, is what you mean, right?
Yes, they can only process so much protein, and that's why you don't want to go and give your Ackie. It's an insect eating animal. They can have high protein, but they can't have high protein a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell everybody, if you're going to feed high protein, we're talking, soft scrambled eggs, soft boiled eggs, chopped up with the shell and all. It's natural calcium. Don't throw it out. Things like this, your pinkies, instead of a pinky mouse, how about getting a hopper mouse and take your butcher knife to it, chop it up while it's still frozen? You get more food value out of it.
Yeah, better bones.
Yes, get your bones and all that. So, yeah, that's going to be a good thing to do when you have little ones that are trying to grow, or if you have producing females, you're trying to get her beefed up to produce or recover from laying her eggs. Those would be a good thing to do, but I would say never more than one decent meal a week at the very most. And that would be for those two, growing baby or producing female. You get into more than that, you wind up running the risk of causing your pet to have gout, and that's no fun for anybody.
Now, when you say one decent meal, you're referring to those actual, not bugs. You're
the heavier stuff.
Yeah,
the rodents and whatnot.
Yeah. Your high protein meal should not be more than once a week at most.
Yeah. You don't want to be using like eggs or mice every day.
No, no. And a lot of people, they think monitor, and that's what they know of monitors, tegus, whatever, and they want to just load them up with high protein and think it's hunky-dory, and it is not. It will kill your animal. They will die of gout or fatty liver disease or something else that's just not fun.
Yeah, I think we had an episode where we were talking about alternative food sources for animals and stuff. And this happened. This came up through 2020. There was a good portion of it where bugs were hard to get for a little bit. I don't know if you experienced that over there, but over here, bugs were hard to get. So we had to, find some alternative sources for food. And yeah, it resulted in using the like rodents or other meat products, but the way that we had to adjust feeding was cut down to smaller portions of those things or less feedings. And, it was just to get by until we can start seeing those numbers get up again as far as crickets and roaches. I think there was a time where, adult roaches out here almost reached $2 a pop. And they were still hard to find.
Per thousand right now, some places sell per thousand superworms roughly $50 to $100. I've seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the last
that.
time I tried to get 1,000 superworms, I think they were $80. And
80?
Yeah. So
I
started doing my own.
How about 20?
I would love that.
That's the normal. Even 30 is understandable because you get a lot of worms for $30, but still, it's like once you get into any more than that, it's just supply and demand. People trying to get, people got to grow, or they got to ramp up or feed more, heat more. Most insects, that's like the rate that people want grasshoppers. Man, if I grew them slow, because Jeff, you can grow things with the grasshoppers at a very low rate, or you can run them at a high rate. But once you get into the very high rate, you have to be very consistent, or else you end up overheating but underfeeding, and then you're basically going to burn them out or dehydrate them more so. And so if you aren't keeping up with things like that, and basically having the turnaround keep up with itself, rather than wanting to grow fast, you heat them up, but then you're not consistent with the food, you basically are going to end up crashing and burning anyways. And so same thing with those super worms. If someone's people are wanting more out of them, and they have to figure out how to grow them a little bit faster without killing them, or just at the the highest point, but not there yet. So that way you have a safe buffer zone of when the things are actually going to die, And so maybe you can keep super worms at mid to high 80s, but anything higher than that with humidity is going to just kill those worms. Things. So it's just for example, if you were to do any of the worms, keeping them at a slightly warmer rate, even hornworms or hornworms themselves, if you keep those in a warm area with all that food that they got going on, they'll grow so much faster if you were to just keep them room temperature in the kitchen somewhere. It's just the grasshoppers are the same way too. So when you're doing your own, because a lot of people, like Alan was mentioning, where they had to find something else. Crickets right now, sure, are still the leading, because people still need it for their little stuff. People need it for babies. It's still going to be I would say a household necessity for reptile keeping, right? It's still a thing. But the grasshoppers, Jeff, and Alan, make sure that you guys are. That's all it is it's not hard at all, because people I've seen that don't have much experience with reptiles at all do it within 2 months. And so anybody can do it. It's just about the consistency. If you can keep up with what they demand, because they are a locust essentially. They do the whole locust thing where they mob on a plant and they destroy it within minutes or hours or whatever, right? And so you have to take that into accommodation of this is what the animal is known for. That's why it's prohibited. That's why we had to go through so much just to get to this point. And so utilizing and taking what we know as already a characteristic of them, I basically apply it to the food. Now, before I was only feeding once or twice a day, but if you're consistent with all your stuff and you can manage it and you can feed them every few hours at the rate that I have you keep them at with heat and everything, then they'll do fine, and they'll grow so fast. I'm talking about adults in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. It can be done. I've seen it myself. I do it myself. Me, Dean, and Cody, and we all kind of share information. These things can basically be adults within 3 weeks, and breeding and everything like that within 2.5 weeks. I mean, sorry, 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's pretty fast for a big bug that gets 3 to 4 inches.
I gotta just keep mine in the cage. Is my problem.
yeah. The sleeve is going to be very ideal.
Man, the sleeve, that is a game changer. I got to get Jennifer to finish my other two. I've got our Hopper Haven 3 model.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But now I've been. Don't get me wrong. I know I've been really busy, so that partly is why I haven't been answering you. But I wanted to save it for this conversation. So, your enclosure, right? As we were discussing it initially, it'll be fine. But for what capacity do you want to use it for? You may have to make 5 or 6 of those if you are going that route, But let's say with the 3, okay, that 3 will overcrowd within a few months. Now you're going to be evicting them, and that's good, right? But it's going to get to a point where your size and rotation and necessity and the time frame will all be overlapping each other if you're not keeping up with it enough. So when I was talking before about like heat and food, right? Everything is done within 2 weeks. How they hatch, how they are essentially growing in the size that you're going to possibly be needing them. All that was in relative time of roughly 14 to 20 days, give or take. Okay. So that's a give or take 15 to 21 days max roughly for eggs to hatch. So if you're, already experiencing that, but you haven't been experiencing that, like I would say, tons and tons of time over, where it's going to be basically overcrowding you so much that those 3 cages right there essentially will be good, but you'll possibly have to make more with how much you want, I think you have a lot to feed, and to actually keep up with the numbers. Obviously you're going at my rate and the heat, but I'm not sure about your food. So, I know you've been trying to grow like lettuce and stuff like that. I threw those ideas out the window because they weren't, obviously I had to go and spend so much more on lettuce. So it's like me waiting for those things to grow. I'd have to grow 100 of those cups, and so really it kind of was more so wasting my time because I'd have to set these cups up, wait for them. So I just said, forget it. I'm just going to throw these away or throw them in the compost or throw them in the yard, let them decompose, and then, utilize just fresh greens that I purchased, So now I'm going through so many heads of lettuce every day, maybe 15 heads of lettuce a day, right? Give or take, because I feed so much. And I have maybe a dozen cages though. So I just don't have 3. Obviously I have to run a lot, and I have a lot of you guys to satisfy, basically almost the whole United States that demands them, and I'm the main guy mostly. So, it's like having to keep up with everybody and do it on time without being like, hey, the lead time is 3 weeks, you'll have to wait. That's bullshit. If I can really do it faster at a consistency they need it at, where I'm basically feeding them as soon as they run out, right? So if you're understanding this is now what to do, everything can be done and grown within 2 weeks. You basically have babies that will be already 2 inches by the time you're feeding them at this rate that I'm telling you about. right? And so by the time those are evicted, you'll have space for more, right? But within time, obviously, not all of them are going to grow. And then the times that you pull the bins from the times that they're in there is actually a few days or 10, 15 days. And so you'll actually be having that whole time of lapse of babies hatching out. Not all of them are going to hatch out at the same time. So you'll have a bunch of different rates already at the start already, but then you'll have a whole new batch within 10 to 15 days of the bins that you just pulled out. You get what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Well, I made the design to specifically to fit. It's not really a baker's rack, but baker's rack to us.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's the 4 foot wide, 18-inch deep, 6 foot tall, 5 tier rack.
yeah.
And I've got this particular rack. I'm not even using all 5 racks or whatever. I just already had it set up over there. But I was thinking I was gonna fill probably before it's over with 2 racks with these type enclosures.
Yeah.
And I was also that's why I was surprised when you said, you know, when I asked you if you'd go with the 2 or 3, you said 3. I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I want you to have as many cages as possible. But
Oh, I know.
yeah, but at the same time, yeah, it's all about what you can fraction off the space to use it for. That's the importance of having the 3. But I'm not sure where you're gonna have your adults, right? I don't recommend you having your adults in there. You could just have those for nymph cages or whatever. But
That's really what I was doing it for.
yeah, so now with the inside of your enclosure, you're gonna have to maximize your surface area even more, not just the walls, but you'll have to create the center grid, those kind of hammock type things, and then try to hang stuff that are like basically it's a hanging wall in the center. It's you've suspended it from the top, and that adds even more surface area for them to climb, places for you to hang food or whatever. So you're gonna get to a point of, all right, basically your colony can collapse if you have so many babies, right? You'll have so many adults and so many bigger ones, but when the babies hatch, there's so much competition that those don't do well. So basically, your next generation is going to be very, very low. You'll notice success rate go lower and lower and lower if you have them all crammed together. So when I have them done separately, in the age, let's say you have your right cage, that's the one you've been doing. It's the one that's been out. It's already about 10, 15 days old, 20 days old, whatever, right? You'll hopefully have been pulling from that one, and that one obviously will be empty the soonest. And then within 10 days, you should have that next one ready. And then you'll have your flow of things. You see how this goes, where it's just by the 10, 15-day mark. And then you'd have that right cage that we started with would have been emptied out with whatever you're doing now. Cleaning that is where I haven't gone with what we've talked about as far as that PVC setup, right? It's because cleaning it after all the poop and all that stuff like that, after a while, it's gonna get kicked on there. So you want to be able to take it out and hose it. I mean, I hose mine and I just sun dry them, and then I bring them back in and I use them.
Are you guys doing any kind of like substrate tray almost, like a catch tray underneath?
You can, but I just have it where I sweep mine out of the bottom of the cage, or I tilt the whole bin and all the poop goes to a corner and I just let all the grasshoppers hop out of there and I pull that out a couple of days later or something like that. But that functionality part, Jeff, will have to be really thought thoroughly if you're gonna have so many grasshoppers, okay? Because after a week, if you're butt loaded with a bunch of grasshoppers, that's a lot of buildup, and so having your bottom front lift up, if you could, in your now making it right, if you can have that lift up and you can sweep out of there, or going in with the shop vac sounds cool, but it's going to create so much mess that the grasshoppers will be jumping from the vibration and the noise. You'll lose grasshoppers because you're obviously sucking it and it's out of your control. But so you just want to sweep it into a corner where it can come out easy, and that the obviously cleanliness and staying adequate with how the base is and the flow of stuff, is how we think thoroughly with all our cages. Because basically you'd make this cage have cleaning issues later on, and then have, like, let's say you end up with grain mites because they dropped the plate of wheat bran, and then the lettuce was down there, and there's a pile of lettuce, so the moisture from the lettuce and the wheat bran created grain mites, and the grain mites attacked your grasshoppers and destroyed your whole colony. That it can just add up that fast with the weeks of waste. So you want to stay on top of that. I mean, I've had this happen to myself, so I mean, I've had it happen to roach colonies. I've had it happen to my favorite green banana roach colony, and it's just from being lazy, being complacent, or it could just food falling and you were just not taking care of it fast enough. So the whole balance of all that should really make sense in being dry and clean at the bottom. So I don't know if you've designed the very front mock of your cage yet, but
I haven't, and I was considering to not even have a door, just to make the whole front panel one piece with the 3 ports in it and be done. And
okay, you have to slide the bins in and out. So will your bins be able to not only fit your arm and elbow in there to get and retrieve stuff, but I'm sorry, not your bins, but will your sleeve be big enough to fit your whole arm and everything into? But I'm not sure if your sleeve can fit a whole large nest bin in there,
it can.
Okay.
It can.
Now, I slide mine in and out of the bottom, so that way I'm not disturbing anything at the top. But if you can make a little, I would say 4 to 5 inch small frame that's meshed, and then essentially create a type of dowel, or basically a dowel hinge thing where you're lifting the bottom door up just like a Reptar Breeze cage, and then that'll be where you can easily sweep the bottom and then clean it out without having to disturb anything at the top. Just to kind of put a idea on how you want to do the front of your cage, because flowing for cleanliness, that's how I think about my enclosures. It's just, if I had a bit of a time getting to the bottom, I wouldn't even mess with it.
Okay.
So just some things to think about. And you should be able to hose it because it's aluminum mesh with your PVC, right? So
right.
You should be able to just easily hose it off, clean it off without much of an issue. And your setup would basically be able to be fully sanitized from it. I myself, that's how I work with. I'm trying to offer people clean bugs. Crickets end up with so much cargo flies. Roaches have a ton of nasty cargo flies. The grasshoppers don't. They don't smell. They don't have any of those issues. They can die within the cup, and there's no gnats in there that just all of a sudden appeared. And those are those things that are now your lizards ate a bunch of those, and so it's just I try to offer a clean product to people, and so I don't want to have anything that's going to be making the grasshoppers nasty or anything like that, And just an idea. All those things fester very fast, especially the grain mites. It's like a killer in any insect or any arachnid or whatever hobby. Those having grain mites in your soil attacking the bug is horrible.
Man, I can honestly say I've never seen the grain mites before.
Yeah,
me too.
Now I'm waiting for them to show up. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're look at some videos of them, man. It's like I've seen them in droves, like basically the whole bottom. Like I'd feed like dog food and lettuce, and it fester at the bottom, and then all of a sudden these tons of white bugs appeared, and they move like in an ocean because it's like
Weird.
lice or bed bugs or something like that, And so, yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah, it's really, really bad. But yeah, so to keep your colony from crashing, Jeff, within your setup, as you go, try to have it where you can easily clean the bottom out. Yeah. And I think your setup would be ace if that part were to be really functioning for you.
Okay.
Now, quick question. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll think about how to incorporate that. Just like a rectangle of PVC at the bottom of each of the three, and have it flip forward.
Yep. Have it with it's basically connected on a dowel. Maybe the dowel hole is a tad bit bigger than the actual dowel piece, and then you're able to just easily flip it up, sweep in there quickly, easily use your hand, or whatever you need to do, get stuff, slide bins in and out. It's a lot easier than using. Don't get me wrong, the sleeve does make things easier, but you won't be able to do everything out of it, So
right.
Yeah, you still have to. Let's say you got it when it's all hooked up, and you'll have to redo your mesh insides. You're not just gonna bust the screen, or you can't get through everything into the sleeve, right? So you'll have to slide things into the bottom. I mean, maybe grab it through the sleeve and then hook it up all weird like with your arm inside.
I think for myself and the listeners, Kai, out there, that I think a series of videos. You're saying dowels and ports, and I'm over here shaking my head like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, man. So it's like this grasshoppers is crazy, man. So I mean, we're just talking about ease of and functionality. We don't, as seasoned keepers, we just don't make cages anymore. We make cages that have to flow for us. They do have to make sense in a way. I mean, sure, looking great is all that, but if it's the functionality of the setup isn't nice, then shit goes into this. That's not even worth it.
Yeah,
it's a troublesome cage, and so the sleeve port is basically a little entry thing that we have that we can hook up to the enclosure, and it basically saves us time and loss of grasshoppers. That's it, because they jump so vigorously, and so this basically cuts out the lossage and the jumping. I mean, they still jump, but they can't jump out at you when you open if you were to open the enclosure. And that whole bottom part is a game changer as well, just because you can do things without disturbing the grasshoppers, and you can just clean. Yeah, being clean is very important.
Also for the listeners out there, not disturbing the grasshoppers. When you set one off and it goes jumping, I don't have nearly as many as Kai. I have 25 grasshoppers that I'm trying to do something with. It used to be about 30, but I would let one out, do something stupid, and they're amazing little creatures. They know what they're doing. They know where they're going. That whole little side move, as if you ever have to open the front, and they do that little shimmy, right? All of a sudden they're on the outside of the cage. You're like, how did you do that? You were just inside the cage. I'm watching you. Now you're outside of the cage. And heaven forbid you have a door open. They know exactly where the exit is. They know exactly where the sun is. And these little bugs have jumped out of the cage. And before they hit the ground, I was just telling Kai this. He does this backspin barrel roll and takes off in mid jump as he's falling, flying away from me out into freedom. So I might be putting in another order here soon.
Freedom. Yeah.
Just hang tight with them and keep them fed well. You'll have more shortly.
I hope so.
Yeah. It's
they're all big now. They're 3 or more inches now, or I want to say that they're all big now. So
yeah, anybody can do it, you know. And everybody asks me all the time, are they hard? If you consider being very consistent with them hard work, then yeah, they're hard. But if you're a reptile keeper, like kind of like us, where I mean, it's kind of like reptiles 24/7, you know, you should be able to tend to them with added a couple minutes to your regular schedule. You know, I don't look at my stuff once a day. I might look at my stuff 100 times a day, you know, or I check stuff and do things or have to do things, and then I just add it into my routine. It's not that hard to, you know, feed stuff. But some people like the roach factor or crickets or whatever, where you can kind of just feed them whatever, feed them anything and get away with it. You know, these a little bit more demanding in what they eat. They demand quality for one, for sure. You can't just throw a piece of potato in there and expect them to just do well.
I love my roaches.
You know?
I love
yeah,
my roaches.
not like the so you know, they're a little bit more demanding, but anybody can do them though.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're getting about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we'll wrap up in a little bit. But Jeff, were you about to say something? Did I cut you off?
Well, I was just saying that the generally bugs are easy enough. Anybody, I mean, if you can't breed roaches, forget it. I mean, seriously though. So, I mean,
I recommend all future monitor keeper out there. If you want to keep monitors in the near future, get yourself a little starter colony, a breeder, you know, set of dubia, and start.
You know,
first.
Back then they used to say, you know, if the feeders were harder than the pets, they didn't want to do it. You know,
right
now, like Jeff has, it's not just buying it from the next guy that created it. He's creating his own blend of roach chow or whatever. It's getting down to the core and the nitty gritty of stuff, and then you know what goes into your reptiles. That's like I don't know, like living at it in its best, or like really, really loving what you do. You know, being able to, all right, let me figure out, all right, how is this going to benefit my animals? It's not exactly cutting a corner. You're just getting down to like the really nitty gritty of stuff, you know. And with the feeders nowadays in the feeder game, crickets and roaches are, it's not that they're necessarily out. It's just some feeders, those they're not going to satisfy parsoni or large monitor lizards that can't have a very fatty diet. So these larger insects is what they typically be eating in the wild, because there's just so much more abundant. You know, we've seen that in savannah monitor stomach content, tree monitor content, you know, things like that. So it's evident that they're eating these larger bugs, and it's not just grasshoppers, it's katydids and big millipedes and scorpions and stuff like that as well. So and those things aren't really applied now, right? So they are entering the game more and more, but I don't know, there's limitations, regulations, there's some of the things that are sort of prohibited on you doing, like giant African land snails or grasshoppers at the time. You know, locusts, desert locusts are definitely prohibited. Things like that. Where they'd actually, in other countries, they use them much more prolifically, and they have better success sometimes. And we're kind of just stuck with some of these other feeders, you know. And doing them now, getting into feeders, it's definitely, it'll give you a great insight on what's going into your animals.
All right, real quick, Jeff, so we don't disappoint the listeners that tuned in for an Ackie episode.
Okay.
I guess a little more rapid fire. What's your ideal enclosure size for Ackies? If you could set up everybody in something, what would be the ideal for you?
Well, I put it in my, I wrote a care sheet, and it gets into a lot of that, but Generally, industry standard seems to be 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. That's 4 feet long, 2 feet deep, 2 feet high. However, if you really want to keep these guys like they need to be kept, that cannot be the adult enclosure unless you have an adult male that doesn't really care to dig a whole lot, or if you have employed an egg laying bin.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those scenarios, that'll fly. But I would suggest more like 4 feet long, 2 feet deep, 3 feet high. The 3 feet high giving you at least a foot or more substrate dam so that you can actually offer full floor substrate throughout. That way, when time comes, they can lay where they want to, and they can also lay their, they can make their burrows.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll make a whole tunnel system under there. Finding them can be an adventure sometimes if you have to dig for it.
Yes, it can. And they get so weirded out, too, when you dig them up.
Yeah.
Some get pissed off. Some look like you just woke them up. And some, they're already digging away from you as soon as they feel the hand in the dirt. It's kind of interesting.
And some of them will react like I would first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Not nice.
What do you use as far as supplementation when you're feeding insects?
Honestly, I use calcium carbonate. Straight calcium carbonate. No D3. None of that crap. The D3 stuff, it's crapshoot. Nobody's measured it out to know exactly how much are you supposed to give and, to what species and la 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 la. But the calcium carbonate, that gives them their calcium that they need. And if you're using UV, which I would recommend, then they'll be able to process things as they need to. So you won't have to worry about the whole D3 aspect of it. Otherwise, if you want to give them vitamins and whatnot, I've been using.
Oh, did we lose you, Jeff?
We lost them.
We might have lost Jeff.
Oh, no.
Right at the 2 hour and 23 mark. We were getting into the special blend there, and got us left us on a cliffhanger, Jeff.
No, that's all right. We'll have Jeff on for a part 2.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a bit more. Jeff's got a whole lot going on himself. He's a busy man, just like the rest of us, with 100 animals or so. Just a ton going on, and so we'd be able to continue this without a problem. So everybody should be able to stay tuned in for GIS Herps. That's Jeff Easter over there in Alabama, I believe, right? Birmingham, Alabama. You'd be able to catch an episode 2 for this gentleman.
Yeah, and just for Jeff, you can find him at GIS Herps. That's GISHERPS on Instagram and on Facebook. Okay. Jeff also runs as a moderator for the Ackees Monitor fans page on Facebook. Okay, so if you want to find him, you can find him there. Check him out. I guess I'll go a little bit further for him and say that page is not for sales. It's not to solicit sales.
Not even bugs, asking.
Right. Yeah. Bugs, cages, anything for sale. Okay. I can't say we all, but I think, there's quite a few of us that use that page. We like to see the content and the posts on there and everything. But outside of the moderator's hands, that page and many other reptile pages will be shut down outside of their hands. They can't even do anything to bring it back if you are trying to sell things, solicit sales, buying things, those type of things. Okay. Facebook has some very strict rules about that. So don't get that page kicked off. There's a lot of good information on there. There's a lot of past posts you can look through. It's important to keep that stuff around. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Kai, where can people find you?
You guys can find me all over. On Facebook, I am just Kai Fan. That's where you'll find me the most, and I'm most responsive on there. You can find me on Instagram as well, where I've been frequenting at quite a bit lately. And so that's big BIG underscore lizard 1, the letter O, the number 3, so 103 at yahoo.com. And then you'll be able to find me on YouTube. I have some videos that I have up there under Mangrove Mecca. That's Mangrove and then Mecca, MECCA. And then, yeah, that's basically it. I'm most responsive on Facebook, so you'll be able to message me on Kai Fan. You should be able to find me just about anywhere.
All right, guys. Again, you can find me at Origins with an S Reptile on Instagram and Origins _ Reptile on Facebook. And you can always tune in. We should be putting episodes out weekly too, so we hope you enjoy. Again, any questions you might have, you can hit up me or Kai, send them on over. We'll try to get to them. Sometimes with Facebook, some of these questions come in a weird way or format that I don't catch all the time. It's like I'm familiar with Messenger, and I'm familiar with Messenger on Instagram, but sometimes some stuff gets like attached to my page in a weird way where it doesn't come through Messenger. I don't know what that's about, but if I don't get back to you, just keep trying or try a different format. I'm probably just not seeing it. All right. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to doing it again next week. All right. Oh, wait. Getting ahead of myself with Jeff dropping off. You can always check out the Morelia Python Network.com webpage. Okay. There's a lot of good information, a lot of good podcasts. We're part of the network, so we're very fortunate to be a part of that network. But if you have any other reptile interests, see the other shows that are on there, from carpet pythons to colubrids to
Herping.
And just general discussion of what's going on in the reptile world. There's a lot
Australian stuff, carpet stuff. Yeah. Quite a bit of stuff, just about for everybody. Almost.
A lot of good hosts. We're talking, published authors and people that have been doing this for a while. Yeah.
Great.
So check it out. All right, guys. Thank you.